and welcome back to another video. This is a video I mentioned last week in another video and a couple of people showed an interest, so I thought it's going to become a whole video. So this is a kind of recommendations-y video based on books that I read at certain periods in my life that I really associate with that period in my life. So it's kind of a story time video, but also a book recommendations video, but also just like looking back on the moments that these books made me think of and why these books are special to me for these various different reasons. So I've got 7 different books to recommend and tell you the stories behind them. I try not to get too down the road of memory lane because I want to make this a recommendations video as well. But these are 7 books that mean something to me, or I associate them with some specific period of time in my life for whatever reason. So I'm going to jump right in and show you what I've got. The first book is The Bridges of Madison County by Robert James Waller. This is a tiny, tiny little book that I read many, many years ago when I was at university. And oh my god, the feelings this book gave me. This is very simply the story of an affair, which is not something I usually read about. However, this book is really good. It's about a National Geographic photographer who ends up meeting a woman who is very, very unhappily married, and it's a very fleeting romance between the two. This is really beautifully written, but it's not too heavy. The fleeting romance is really at the heart of it and drives the passion of this book. But for me, I associate reading this when I was at university and I had to stay up late because I had to go do something later in the evening. I think I had to pick some people up from somewhere. So I had to stay up late to be wary and ready to be able to go and get them from the train station because I'd said I would do them a favour. So I'm up, I'm ready, and I'm thinking, what can I read to keep me awake? What's short, what's sweet, what could I just whip out for the evening and read? So I think I started this one on that evening and finished it that evening. And I just associate that night and how cozy I felt as well, because I think I had a shower and I got ready for bed so that when I got back in I could just go to sleep, and I had candles and I had relaxing music and it smelt really nice. And then I just had my heart absolutely ripped out by this book and was sobbing by the time I got like the text to be like, come and get us. I was just sobbing my eyes out at this book. So I don't know why this is so poignant to me, but I certainly remember this feeling of like needing to be awake, needing to be aware. So this was what I chose, and just that cozy feeling, but having to leave that cozy feeling to go out in my car and stuff after I'd finished this book was really like jarring of like, and you're back in the real world. So this is a bit of a weird one in terms of why I remember it so fondly, but I just really have that vivid feeling still as to how this made me feel. But if you are after like some short fleeting romance, then this is definitely that. It is absolutely tiny. How many pages is it? About 140 pages, and there's some bits at the back there that aren't part of the story as well. So pick this one up, Bridges of Madison County. It's also a film. I haven't watched the film in case it ruins it, but I think Meryl Streep is in it. I don't know who else, but it's a good book, so I'm sure it probably is a good film. I just haven't seen it about anywhere. The next book is Viper by Bex Hogan. This is a fantasy swashbuckling adventure that involves the sea, pirates, magic. Now this one I really, really associate with going to Yauk last year in 2019, which was the last time I went to Yauk because it wasn't on this year because of coronavirus, which is really sad. But I was reading this one down on the coach down to Yauk, which was about a 2.5 hour coach journey, and I just sat and read this. And I think I ended up getting the audiobook so I could listen to it as I was going from the coach to the hotel and things, and just could pick it up throughout that weekend. Now I usually struggle with whichever book I read throughout the Yauk weekend because I find there are so many other books that I want to read that I get distracted from my own book, but that didn't happen with this one and I just fell into this. I realise if you don't know what Yauk is, this is probably very confusing. It's the Young Adult Literature Convention. It's the UK's answer to BookCon, essentially. It happens every July in the UK. It's amazing. It's 3 days of bookish fun, and I just absolutely love seeing all my bookish friends and getting loads of books. So this one I really associate with that happy feeling of being at Yauk last year, because that was the best Yauk I've been to so far, and I'm sure next year will be even better because they just keep getting better. But this I really associate with that lovely warm feeling of being around friends and just enjoying a fantasy that kept me gripped despite the fact that I had all these other books that I was looking at. This one still kept me gripped. And I think I finished it like the day I got back from Yauk, because every time I go to Yauk I'm just so desperate to read. I feel so interested in any book, every book. So this one definitely kept my interest, definitely enjoyed this throughout Yauk, and it was something a bit different as well because I don't often read sea esque fantasy books. I don't tend to lean towards the ones that are set at sea, but this one was really good. The next one is The Secret History by Donna Tartt. I feel like I've spoken about this one a lot recently, but it just fits into these recommendations. So I picked this one up because I was in Rome and I was reading Priory of the Orange Tree, and I couldn't bring that with me because it was too heavy. I mean, I could have brought it with me, but I'd heard a story about someone getting stopped at the airport because of how big the book was in their bag and it looked like a weapon or a brick or something. Anyway, it was too heavy, so I put that down and picked this up. Now, my reason for picking this up is I knew it was, I don't think I quite understood whether it was dark academia at that point, because I don't think dark academia was like as widely talked about within the book community as a genre. It was still a genre, obviously, but it wasn't as popular as it is right now. So I just knew that this was like an intelligent book, if that makes sense. And I associate Rome with lots of knowledge and interest and culture and a lot to learn. So that's why I brought the book with me to read. I think I found this quite daunting before I read it. And then I didn't realise that in this book, briefly, two of the characters go to Rome. So I was reading it in Rome and I was like, ah, amazing. But it just made me feel more intelligent, I think, because I was reading about all this smart stuff they were going on about, and then I was seeing loads of smart stuff and I was like, doesn't this just make me sound really clever? Obviously. I really enjoyed this one. This is about a group of school friends who are very strange and have very weird ways about them and get involved in something that they have to try and cover up. It's an interesting read, but for me, I really associate this with like the downtime in between doing things like seeing the Colosseum and going to the Vatican. Would come back and read this in between. And I think I read this whole thing whilst we were there, which is quite a feat actually, because when you're in a city like Rome, you are not having much downtime. Like, you are constantly busy, you're out during the day, you go out for dinner, you don't often have a moment to yourself to be like, and breathe. But I did. I finished this one whilst I was there, and it's fairly chunky, to be honest. Oh my god, it's really chunky. The pages are super thin. It's like 600 pages. This is deceiving. It's bigger than it looks. So that is my book associated with going to Rome. I have no idea if this is an actual good video or not. The idea worked better in my head versus the actual application of it. Then this book means a crap ton to me, and I've included this edition because this is the edition I read when I associate with this time. If you don't know what this is yet, it is Caraval, that's upside down, that's Caraval by Stephanie Carper. This is the arc that I got when I was working in Waterstones in 2016. This book saved me a little bit. I got this book as an arc when I knew nothing about it really. I just knew that everyone was very excited. I was very excited. This is about a magical carnival that's called Caraval that pops up and is controlled by this guy that does all this weird intricate trickery within it, and it's just a complete game that people can take part in and watch, but it becomes a bit more serious for that for two sisters that get involved. This I compare to Alice in Wonderland because it is honestly, wow, that was a bright beam of sunlight. It is honestly so fantastical and you just get the feeling that anything can happen. But for me, when I picked this up, 2016 was one of the worst years I have ever experienced in my entire existence. A lot of people died around me. I think 7 people died. I moved from my hometown, I left university, I had a job I absolutely despised, and then started working at Waterstones, which I loved dearly, and my relationship ended. It was really, really crap. And this book I picked up just as the relationship ended, and I was in a really low place, like a really low place, and this was so fantastical and so escapist that it totally pulled me out of it. And I think it saved my mental health a little bit because it was something that I could focus on that was so unlike the real world, and so like anything could happen. It was like you could believe in the impossible in this book, and I think I needed that hope at that time. Out of all of the books in this prompt, this one means the most to me for what it did. All these other ones I kind of associate with different times in my life and different things I was experiencing, but this, for how it made me feel and how it pulled me out of that feeling with my mental health, I will always recommend this. And I think actually, if you've not read this series, and now that we're in very weird times again, then try it because it helped me. So it might help you. But this, yeah, this is the arc, as I said, because this is the one that I read at the time. So I wanted to use that copy to show you guys today. I feel like the next one just pales in comparison, but this is Mythos by Stephen Fry. This is his own retold versions of the Greek myths, and this is a book that I brought with me to Kefalonia, which is one of the Greek islands, and I sat and read this in the sun by the pool in between going to see these amazing old sites and old castles and ruins and stuff within the island. It's a very, very small island, Kefalonia, so it's like you can see it all in a day pretty much if you're able to, and I just really associate this with reading about the Greek myths and then seeing the environment similar to the one talked about in this book. Now Kefalonia is one of the Greek islands, so it didn't have quite as much as going to actual mainland Greece would have, and I would really like to visit mainland Greece, but this book, it just made me feel like I was learning a little bit more whilst being in the right environment almost. I think I couldn't have not read this there. Now I look back at it, it felt so cool to be reading it whilst I was sat amongst the type of description it was giving me. Obviously a lot more modern than this book's setting, but I did really enjoy reading this one and learning about it. This can be a bit daunting, I'm aware, because there's a lot of Greek myths in here. It's a hardback, it's tall, it's got about 400 pages worth, I think. Yeah, just under 400 pages worth, and there's another Greek myth every few pages. However, the audiobook for this one is really good because I think I didn't finish it whilst I was out there and I came home in the middle of it, so I just took over with the audiobook because it felt less magical when I wasn't in a Greek island to be reading it. I think I've even got like somewhere in here, yeah, this is my, well, I'm going to show you the back of it so I don't give you away my details, but there's my boarding pass for the plane that took us over to Kefalonia or back from it. But yeah, really, really enjoyed reading this one when I was in the right setting for it as well. The next book is The Starless Sea by Erin Morgenstern. This is a book about books. There's an adventure, there's an amazing setting with like this hidden library-esque place. I can't even begin to go into what this is about. It's very fantastical, again, very much like the impossible can happen. I really enjoyed this one, and this one I associate with my time last year in Scotland. I went up to Glasgow and Edinburgh with Lauren from Fiction Tea, and oh my god, it was just the best time, and this was the book that I was coming back to. This is quite a chunky one as well. Again, probably way over the 400 page mark. But I read this one whilst we were there, yeah, nearly 500 pages. I read this one whilst we were there and I was just getting really excited about it because I think when I got back, or before I went, I think when I got back to England, I was then going to the tour for this, so I was seeing Erin Morgenstern talk about this book. So I think I was trying to finish it in advance of that. But for me, going to Scotland is one of my last trips that I took, and then the world just fell apart. So I really associate this with that time of like the freedom and the enjoyment and being somewhere new with a friend and just being able to explore. So this is the book that I was reading and I really enjoyed it, and I've now got 3 copies of this. That's how much I enjoyed it. I've seen a lot of people say they're daunted by this, and I can understand why. It's very beautifully written. It wasn't a quick read, it wasn't action-packed, but the imagery stays with me still, and the characters, so I think that's always a win when an author can do that. And finally, the book that started off the idea for this video is Sarah J Maas's House of Earth and Blood. I'm sorry I'm recommending this one again, but at the same time, I'm not too sorry. This is again the copy that I read because it's got all my tabs in it. This one I really associate with a positive, happy time, and I think that when I reread this book next year, I will still associate with that time because of how strong that emotion is for me. And again, this is why I came up with this idea for the video, because of how this book makes me feel still. This is about an urban fantasy world with magical creatures, dramatic stuff going down, angel type people and relationships and sauciness and just friendships and love and loss, and oh my god, it's so good. It's so good. It made me cry. Like, that's an achievement for a book to make me cry, because actually more and more are making me cry at the moment, but this one, really, I sobbed. But what I associate this one with is, for my mum's birthday this year, yes, that's right, we did something this year. At the start of the year, in February, we went to a spa day, and I have never done a spa day before, and we went all day. It was a birthday present from one of our relatives to my mum to be able to do that, and we went all day, and we sat and just enjoyed the time, and we read, and we just enjoyed the peace and the calm, and it was just absolutely beautiful. And the reason it was so lovely is because the next week coronavirus really hit, and it was suddenly like, okay, this is really serious. And this book I associate with those days before. Like, we knew it was a thing, we didn't know how intense it was, but we were still able to go out to a spa and enjoy ourselves without it being a huge thing in the UK. And then yeah, like the week later, it just suddenly was like, okay, this is really in the UK now, everyone needs to lock down, don't go to work. So for me, this represents that blissful ignorance of freedom and of us not knowing what 2020 was about to become. And I just associate with that lovely relaxing feeling and the smells of being in the spa. I just adored it. I adored this whole reading experience, so this one will hold a firm place in my heart for that reason. So those are all the books that hold a special place in my heart / I associate with certain times in my life. I don't know if this was interesting or not, so let me know. If it wasn't, I apologise, but you got some more book recommendations. I'm gonna go now because I feel like my plumber is about to arrive and I won't be able to wrap this up if they're here because they're going to be loud today. But thank you guys so much for watching this video. If you did like it, please give it a thumbs up, or you can comment down below. Let me know if you thought it was a completely ridiculous idea or what books you associate with certain times in your life. And you can subscribe to see more of my face on your feed. Thank you guys so much for watching. Keep smiling and stay positive.